Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my another video on ELK Stack. So in this video we are going to talk about different Node.js libraries which we can use for logging. So there is a Nestjs Pino and Nest Winston or using Winston library. So Winston and Nest Winston are doing the same thing. Nest Winston is like more integrated with the Nestjs. Nest Pino actually another library which is using existing Nestjs logger, and there is a Winston library, independent library which you can use with the Node.js and also can be integrated with the simple Nestjs for logging. There you need to write a custom logger. So let's get started. Let's explore these things one by one. So let's start with one particular module. So here what we are going to do is, this is our same repository Nestjs Advanced. Here I have created a Nestjs logger folder and I will just install the required modules. First of all, let's start with the Nestjs Pino. Actually, this is a module which is also popular when you don't want to use a Nestjs or Winston or Nest Winston. Then you can just use just an existing setup. I need to install this in the right directory, I guess. Nest Winston Pino. Right, now I'm able to install it. So pnpm add Nest Pino. So this is the module which we have installed. So Nest Pino doesn't use out of the box it supports the existing logger module, right? If you see import logger module from the Nest Pino, and we are just doing a logger module.for root, right? So what we will do, we just import this, and whatever the existing logger we were using, I'm building on the same code base, so I will remove the existing logger. And in the main.ts, what changes we are going to do, because Nest Pino is actually extension of your existing logger which we are using. So logger is coming from Nest Pino, and here app module, and we can just simply say is a buffer logs true. That's it. We don't need to do anything else on top of that. And here we can just simply do is a logger. So that is important part. In the main.ts, what we are doing is app.useLogger, app.getLogger, and logger is coming from Nest Pino. So this is the minimal setup which you need to use Nest Pino, and here you are initializing this particular module, logger module.for root. Now you can add some logging in your application, like here this .logger.log, right? And this logger is coming from Nest Pino. So npm run start debug, and here if you see the default logging which Nestjs was providing, and what is the difference here, it has added couple of more arguments like level, time, PID, namespace, context, right? And then route path name and all. So it is just extending whatever we were having earlier, and it is very easy to set up. We can also take a look onto the documentation. So this is a Nest Pino setup, and what we are doing here is very simple. First of all, add this particular module, then logger module.for root, and in the main.ts simply app.useLogger. That's it. Now how to use this particular logger in your code, that we can check here in this class. What we are doing is we are extending. So the important part is the Nest Pino is it is extending the logger provided by Nestjs logger. So in this particular class, if you see what we are doing, import logger from Nestjs common, and then and here we are creating the logger instance, new my logger, my service.name, and this .logger.verbose, this .logger.debug. So what it is doing, indirectly it is extending what Nestjs is providing. So we haven't created any custom logger class, nothing. We are just using the same logger which is coming from Nestjs common, and then we are doing this .logger.log debug verbose. But we changed the internal definition of the logger which is being used by Nestjs by saying app.useLogger, app.getLogger, and this logger is coming from Nestjs Pino. But while you log the message, that logger instance is coming from Nestjs common. So overall it is using Nestjs standard built-in logger, and the logs are being produced by Pino internally. Now the next library we are going to explore is a Winston. When I was developing Node.js, I was using a Winston library a lot. It provides a lot of flexibility, a lot of transport modes. If you see here, I created a Winston.create logger, And here I am defining what all transport mode I want. Okay, I can write the logs into a file. I can put the logs console onto the terminal. And if you are using not equal to production, then I can also put the logs on the console, right? So Winston supports different transport modes. So I created a copy of the existing project because here we are playing with a different logging strategy or different logging modules. So existing, I copied it, and then I will just change it to 28, and this is Nestjs Winston logger, and we will play with the Winston here. Winston provided different logging strategies and all. It's better we change the package name, project name, because we will do pnpm install, and this is the pnpm workspace. If you want, you can also use a Nestjs workspace, which is very powerful. This is the existing project, so I don't want to make lots of changes here. Now let's install our required modules here. So first I will create a logger config, logger service. So logger.service.ts, logger.config.ts, and then logger.interface.ts. I mean, whatever the required things, logger.module, logger.config, because all these things, logger, configure management, logging management, external interface, all these can be a separate library or separate module. Okay, always separate them. You can create a folder inside a source, and you can write everything inside that. So we will just do pnpm add Winston. Winston is actually a module, and yeah, Winston. And if you want to do the log rotation, then there is a different file you want. So these are the different transport modes which I want to use in my application. So it will take some time. I need to refresh the VS Code also after I install the particular library sometimes. So I got the Winston from Winston, and now I can just do new Winston dot transport, and inside transport you can just see what are the different transport modes it is supporting. It's a transports dot console. Okay, and you just pass all the arguments inside this, like, okay, what all things you want. So format, log level, and how your logging should work when you are actually printing it on the console. So format, timestamp, colorize, and printf. Whenever you finally print the log statement, it should have a timestamp, log level. Then second, transport mode, I want to the file. So I want to put a file name with the date stamp, logs application inside a logs folder, and date pattern, keep archive true, maximum size and maximum files, and log rotation will take care of rotating the files and purging the old files. That is important. I have used the log rotation on EC2 instance. It really works well. For your production application also you can do this. It automatically keep purging the files from the logs folder. And you also need to install the Winston daily rotate file. Okay, so it will create a log rotation file inside the logs folder, and it will save the logs there. So whatever the logs we want to have, we can write them onto the file, and then maybe like the file bit in the ELK stack can read this file and can push those logs to the Logstash to the Elasticsearch, and then using Kibana we can just visualize it. Now we can write our logger service, custom logger service, which we are writing here. We have written just a logger transport, different transport which we want to support with the Winston. So we are creating a custom logger class like app logger service and logger.info, logger.error. It's just a simple class which contains all these methods like app logger service injectable, and you can define all the log, error, debug, verbose method, and you need to use the logger instance provided from the logger config, right? Because we have created a logger instance inside a logger config passing all the different transport, and then you can just do logger warn, error, info, and debug. Now just a logger module will just import all the logger service inside this and export a app logger module. So whenever you write a custom your own module, always prefix app, so you will know, okay, this is your own custom logger module, app logger config, app config service, app config module, something like that. That's just a different way of file naming or module naming. So you know, okay, this is something which you have written, because config service is provided by Nestjs, logger module is provided by Nestjs also. So you can just change that syntax by putting a prefix app. Okay, now inside this I will be just using app logger module here. So logger module.forroot we can remove because we are not using nest Pino here. we are writing our own custom logger module. So app logger module you import, and later we can just use any particular service. Inside this service we can just do a constructor injection of app logger service. So here I need to provide app logger and app logger service, and provide a dependency injection of that logger service, app logger service, and then you can just do simply is this dot logger dot log. So we already got the instance. Simply do is this dot logger dot log, logger dot log, logger dot info, logger dot debug, verbose, whatever the method you have exposed, right? So this is now using our custom logger. Here you can set logger dot. You can also set a context. Okay, context is nothing but maybe a location, maybe application name, and whatever is information which you want to set additionally, which you can set here. Now I will restart the application and try to test it. This is what I'm talking about, logger module, and I will start the application to see how my logs look like now when I'm hitting a particular endpoint. So yeah, this is the logs I'm hitting, and I'm hitting just a curl API v1 health endpoint again and again to generate the logs. And this is my log looks like. Okay, undefined, maybe the context is by being passed undefined, which we can fix. So here this dot logger dot log, we can pass the context. Context is nothing but maybe a service name which you are using, right? So that can be another argument. So this log is being generated from this particular service or from this particular method. So if anything happened, you already know, this execution is inside this particular service and this method, which is causing a problem. And now I'm doing it again, and I can see doing health check. Let me check the context. Okay, there was a typo which I fixed. Context is actually second argument. And here you can see, and this is the file, because we are using two different so as we are using two different transport mode file and console base, this is the logging file. Inside a logs folder you can see application and datestamp.log file has been generated with this much content, right? Whatever we see on the console is also being written to the file. So these are the two different transport. With the ELK stack we will also using this Logstash transport, Elasticsearch transport, and you can push the data to the Elasticsearch directly, or maybe to the Logstash and then Elasticsearch, or maybe a file bit is reading the file which you have written from the log. So file bit will read the file and it will push that to the Logstash. Logstash will filter and transport, will write it to the Elasticsearch, and Kibana will visualize it. So this is how the whole chain is working. Okay, there is another module which I want to talk about is a Nest Winston. Maybe you don't want to use a Winston, this configuration, this module you don't want to write, then you can also use the Nest Winston. Let's take a look on to that in the next video.